If you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Coming up on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, we're going to plant onions from starts in our raised bed. And then we're going to plant some early summer squash. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored by the following. MIgardener.com, with over 450 varieties of non-GMO, heirloom, organic flowers, vegetables, and herb seeds, all for 99 cents. MIgardener.com. HappyLeafLED.com, a commercial-grade grow light with a home gardener's affordability. All indoors, no fans, no motors, simply plug in and grow. Great for seed starting to lettuce to full-grown tomatoes. HappyLeafLED.com.
Sustain Natural Fertilizer, offering superior organic plant foods that deliver research-proven results. Trusted by farmers, growers, and gardeners for 30 years. Learn more at sustain.com.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. Well, today we're finally in the garden. We're actually going to plant some vegetables in the ground. We're going to start in the front yard here with our raised bed, 13 square foot garden, and we're going to plant onions in it. Now, we've planted onions in this bed last year, had phenomenal onions. We're also going to plant them in another raised bed up along the house. This will be the last year we plant onions in this bed for a couple of years. Now, we have revitalized the soil, and we're going to do that again today. We've added some compost. We're going to add coffee grounds as well as some Sustain 464 fertilizer. Now, the coffee grounds contain about 2% nitrogen, a tad of phosphorus, and a tad of potassium. But you don't want to over-fertilize your onion bed because, yes, the onions need a certain amount of nitrogen to develop, but too much, you're going to have a lot of green, small bulb. And the additional thing about onions is you want to be sure either if you've started them, you started the right kind, or if you're purchasing them, you're purchasing the right kind. There are three different categories in which the onions fall in. Long day, which is what the northern portions of the North America are. Central or neutral day or midday, which is the center portion of North America. And then short day, which is the southern portions of North America. If you was to grow a short day in Wisconsin that needs long day, you're going to get an onion to grow. You're going to get basically chives. You're not going to get much of a bulb of anything to develop. It needs that long day onion because we get a lot of sun in the summertime for that root development. We are starting from onion starts. These are the live plants. If you choose to go with the little bulblet onion or the little tiny onion that's a set, that's really not the most recommended way to go, simply because onions are biennials, and that means that if left alone last year, they will regenerate and put growth on this year and then develop that seed head that sometimes we see. By using the set, the bulb was grown last fall or late winter, harvested, put in a bag and sent to your garden center or online. And now you're planting that bulb again. That bulb is now thinking it's in its second year of growth, and you're going to potentially get more seeds on, or more of the onion sets go to seed. Now, the onion bulb is still edible even if you have a seed pod on. It doesn't store very good at all because it's got that green portion all the way through the bulb because it's putting on seed, not for the growth of the bulb. So we're going to start with the soil here. We've got compost. We're going to add fertilizer. Recommended rate on the back of the package, again, just because a half a cup is good, or it recommends a half a cup, for example, 2 cups is not better. Over-fertilization is as damaging as under-fertilization, and you're wasting a lot of the fertilizer by over-fertilizing. And if you're doing it in an inorganic manner, those molecules attach to water, and that also is what causes runoff in dead zones, lakes, streams, rivers. But you just follow the recommended rate on whichever form of fertilizer you choose to use in your garden. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and fertilize this here with the Sustain, following the recommended rates on the back of the package. And then I'm going to add the coffee grounds. Now, you can get these from your local coffee roaster. They're not going to cost you. Don't buy them, okay? Most places you just call and ask you have coffee grounds available, and they will ask you to bring a bucket in, and by a day later you're going to have more coffee grounds than you know what to do with. The key to this is not just to let them lay on the ground like I am here. You want to work them in, because if you do not work them in, that nitrogen in that coffee ground can evaporate into the atmosphere and you lose the benefit of what you have there. So we had a 4-6-4 sustained fertilizer. You take that with the approximation of the 2% nitrogen here, you're actually at a 6-6-4. So that's good shape. Now, I do want to work this in. I'm just going to spade this garden under. When we built this garden, and I've got worms kicking up here, we actually put in 2 layers of cardboard as a barrier between the native ground and the raised bed, just to smother out weeds. Some people say you don't need to. I want to do that just as a bit of insurance policy on my end. The cardboard now has biodegraded, which was the plan, and we're going to go ahead and work the soil by doing what I just did. I did kick up some clay particles, but with this coffee grounds, with the worms, with the compost, the minute amount of clayish type of native soil that's underneath this bed, I'm not concerned with. So I'm going to work, just flip it over, got the fork, the tines depth, and go from there. Okay, so what I've done is try to get most of the coffee filters under the soil, just so they can break down quicker. Now, if there's anything left on top like this here, I can find a spot here, lift up, throw them there, drop it back on top. Or you can just throw them in your compost pile. It's going to make the planting process, yeah, that's what I'll do, a little more difficult trying to, okay. Now, if you do have a weed like that, just get that out of there. Okay, now let's talk about planting. So we're going to be planting sweet jumbo long day onions and Walla Walla long day onions. And again, you can do this in row method or however you want to plant it. We're going to do it in the square foot garden method. And we did that last year, 9 per square foot. Worked really, really well. We're going to be using the seeding square this time to make our squares and our spacings as perfect as possible to get the most in this bed. The seeding square is a device, and they're one of the sponsors of our radio program here in Milwaukee that you can listen to on podcast or in studio video replay. It's color coordinated, and there's a laminated chart that comes with it that goes over a variety of common vegetables in which you would grow in your garden and how to space them based on the color coordination. Comes with a little marker as well as a funnel for the smaller seeds. We're going to be using the yellow holes, that's the 9 per square foot, and we can mark it and then remove it and then plant our onion starts in the ground here. We've pre-soaked these. Now when you buy these, you want to get the healthiest ones if you're going to buy them from your garden center. You want to get the healthiest ones possible and then pre-soak them a couple of hours before you intend to plant to try to revitalize. Onions are extremely tough plants to kill, so most of these will come back, but again, you want to pre-soak them so they're less of a shock. The more healthy, more hydrated a plant is prior to planting, the better off that plant is going to be to adapt to its new growing conditions. So this is the key to why you want to get this about as level as you possibly can, just so things flow a lot better. Okay, so we just start on the edge here. You can push it all the way down, and I don't need to worry about the markings here. I just need to punch the holes in the yellow here so I can have and know where my marks will be. And you can see right there, I can plant my onions, move to the next one, and mark it again and go until I run out of space. So we'll just drop the onion in, drop the onion in. You do want to try to get the roots under the soil. You don't want to go like 4 inches deep. You do want to, about an inch or so is recommended here. We just want to kind of get the roots under the soil, and just a little bit of that, what will be the bulb. And we can just go in here and go all the way through the bed using the seeding square as the easy marking device that takes the guesswork out of the gardening process. All right, so I've got 137 onion starts planted here and all done in just a matter of minutes with the seeding square. Now, we're gonna go over to the other raised bed, which contains a bottom on it, so we can't dig into the native soil. But next thing we wanna do, we wanna water these in good and then let them go. They'll be fine. Take about 90 to 110 days to get mature. And if there's any of them that kind of see that are weak or dying, we can certainly replace them. So let's head over to the raised bed, the 2x4 raised bed by rootmaker.com, and we'll take a look at how we would go about planting more onions over there. Now this is our 2x4 raised bed from rootmaker.com. It's about 14 inches high. We've filled it with compost had compost in it, and we topped more compost on it, and we actually incorporated leaves. Since this does have a bottom on it, the worms can't get up into it, but it is porous and the water will drain out of it. You do not want to add worms to containers like this because the worms don't have the opportunity to go deeper. If it gets colder or warmer or wetter or drier, they don't have the availability and they can die. So I am going to add, just like we did in the other bed, some of the recommended rate of Sustain all-natural fertilizer. I'm going to add some coffee grounds, not much, because even though there's no worms in this raised bed, there's still a lot of microbial life that will break down these items that we're putting in, the leaves, the fertilizer, the coffee grounds. And then we'll go ahead and plant 72 more onions using the seeding square to maximize and optimize our space. And that will work for square foot gardening, whether you're in raised beds or traditional ground or containers for that matter. So we'll do the same as we did in the front yard with the raised bed there, with hopes that the onions will grow just as they did last year. Rhubarb is a perennial that can come back up to 15 plus years. Now you do have to divide it at a certain point when this plant gets large enough, and many people grow it in the ground, but we are actually growing it in containers. This is a Rubbermaid container, about 30 some odd gallons, and we also have a smaller 15 gallon or so pot that we started these from seed. Now this will be the third year that these will be growing, so we should have very lush and large rhubarb stalks that we can use. The leaves are poisonous, so you don't want to eat those. Now if you're going to grow rhubarb, you can buy it from a crown that is advanced in its age, so it can produce quicker. But before you find a crown or order one online, figure out if you even like rhubarb before you go to the effort of growing it. Well, once it's in the container here, we want to fertilize it. We have to fertilize it because it cannot sit in this container forever and grow. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a Sustain fertilizer. It's a 464. It's derived from turkey litter and pine bark, so it's not a mined product. So it's very organic in that manner, and it's OMRI listed. Now with container rhubarb, you want to do about a half a cup per year of an all-balanced fertilizer, whether you choose Sustain or a different brand of your favorite. So we're going to take a half a cup and we're going to mix it into the top of the container here. Now these have sat out all year long. You look online and they say take the container indoors, like a garage or a shed, where it's cool and where it can go into dormancy after the plant has died off during the fall portions, and then you bring out in the spring, because if the roots get too cold, the plant's going to die. Well, these have been out for 3 years, and the plants flourish each year stronger than the year before. So not everything you read online is accurate. So what we're going to do is we're going to fertilize. We're going to take a half of cup, which I know that's about a handful here. I'm going to sprinkle it around, and then I'm actually going to work it in the first couple of inches of the container. And I'm going to do that with a secondary container too. Then I'm going to come and we're going to bring some leaves in here and mulch this, one to add more of a water retention barrier so I don't have to water nearly as much. Both these containers, by the way, have holes in the bottom so they can drain properly, but I do want to hold as much moisture in this as possible. Now if you don't have any leaves left on your property, you can use simply shredded paper. May not be that most ideal looking. You can also use chemical-free and seed-free grass clippings, dry them, and then layer them on an inch or two around the container, around the plant here in the container, and that'll also work for your other container items that you're growing. Okay, so I've got leaves here. I'm going to add a good amount, If I got twigs and sticks in here, that's fine too. The only disadvantage that we have found in this container rhubarb is that when the wind blows, this plant is elevated higher now because it's in a container, so it does get a little beat up a little bit more than it would if it was in a traditional ground garden. So fertilizer containers, your rhubarb containers, you want to do this yearly, about a half a cup of an all-balanced fertilizer. So this is our 60-gallon grow bag. We're going to use an Oya to help water this. Now, an Oya is an unglazed, porous device. It can be of any size or shape. This is the smaller version from Dripping Springs. Oya is one of the sponsors of our radio show here in Milwaukee. This has been used for hundreds of thousands of years. We bury this neck deep, we fill it with water, and the water, as the soil needs it, pulls the water out of the container, just like a terracotta pot. And this is the smaller version. There's a 2.9 gallon one that we will use in the physical ground. So what we got here is I've got compost and leaves from this year, and then I've got compost from last year below. So what I'm going to do is mix this all together, and then we're going to plant some early summer squash. You want to be careful when you turn soil over in these giant grow bags, simply because you can pierce the side. So we do have leaves mixed in here, and that's fine. There's still microbial life even though there's no worms in here, and that's going to break down. Now, additionally to this, what I'm going to add is some coffee grounds. And then the coffee grounds contain about 2% nitrogen, and I'm not going to add a whole lot, but I am going to add some, because them zucchini plants, we want some green, but we don't want it to all be just, a lot of top growth. All right. And you want to mix those coffee grounds in. The filters are fine too. The coffee grounds contain about 2% nitrogen. So essentially with the 464, we're at a 664 if you really want to do specific math on the percentage of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The potassium and the phosphorus on your coffee grounds, very minute, under about a 0.2 or under, something like that, very small. So now we're about a month before it's really safe to plant summer squash outside. So what we can do is, number one, I want to put the Oya in the center here. And just because it may freeze, it doesn't mean that this is going to freeze. Some people I've talked to with the owner, they've had Oyas out for 8 to 15 years in the ground, and they've never broke or cracked. So I'm going to dig a hole here. We'll fill it when we get done. But we want to fill it, put it neck high, or right at the neck. Okay, so that's good. Now this will, pull the water out as the soil needs it. So that's in the center. Kind of press it around so there's good soil contact to that, so the wicking effect can take place. So now, there's a couple of ways to what I have found to work in extending to getting a jump start on the summer squash. One is if you have a coffee pot or a thing that coffee came in, you can use that. Preferably cardboard is best. We did that last year. Even with a milky top, we were able to get the seedlings to germinate and grow 1 month earlier than normal. If you have a black container here, plastic, you can cut the top off and put some saran wrap and snap it down. It'll allow the sun to go through and kind of hold some warmth in there. Metal ones, I'm still experimenting with those because the metal wants to hold or bring cold air in, kind of like a refrigerator type effect. So we're still playing around with that. You can use milk jugs for it as well. Plant 4 different varieties of summer squash here. The cucuzella summer squash, the 8-ball, the gray summer, and scallop yellow bush, patty pan essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to space these. I can get 4 in here safely that I feel comfortable with. And I'm just going to, dig around, mound the soil around the container here. Yeah, I'll use this one here. And if it's really going to be warm, you want to take the tops off. And about there, that's good. So planting this is very simple. Now we're going to do about 3 seeds per container. You can already see the heat, the emitting out, that evaporation factor that it's getting warm in there. So I'm going to add some soil in there. Now these can be left on, like this particular thing, the container, we can leave this on all year round. We just take the top off. This one here the same way. These milk jugs or these coffee, we're going to have to remove those as it gets closer to the warm season. So I'm just going to take 3, and that's a good safe number, and plant them like you normally would in the ground, about a 1/2 inch deep. And then we'll take some saran wrap, pull it back over the container, get them roots out of there, and then just snap it on. And that's as good as it needs to be. Then we just take the top off and fill it up. And there you go. That's how easy it is. And that's how you get a jump start on your summer squash before it's ready to plant. Thanks for joining me. Join me again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.